Welcome to B2B Commerce Corner. Commerce Corner is a sub-series of the E-Commerce Edge podcast discussing all things B2B commerce through the lens of agencies, consultants, merchants, and more. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-Commerce Edge podcast. One of our first sets of episodes for 2026. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Bret WARDLE, and he is the e-commerce product manager at BradyPLUS. Welcome to the podcast, Bret.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be here. Looking forward to this conversation. It's going to be incredibly fun.
So am I, and let's get into this thing. Before we talk about Brady specifically, you've been there for a year and a half, and they're a distributor in the JanSan food service packaging, I'd say broader facilities management distribution space, and that's what you lead for them. You lead all e-commerce operations for them, and I love the fact that you're not an e-commerce project manager, you're not an e-commerce manager. I love the fact that Brady treats this as a product, like we're maintaining a platform, a product. So I'm not a project manager. I'm not a program manager. I'm not someone. We're building a product for our customers to use. And we're owning that internally. And that's our mindset towards that. And project and product management, they sound similar, but they are so different. And the mindset and the way we manage products versus projects are totally different. And I love the fact that you guys have gone down this path. And I don't know if you were able to influence your job title before you came in or not, but how did you even you got a computer science background, but you've had a massively varied background, right? You haven't just been in the product space. You have held product management roles before, but I just think your background is varied. So how did you specifically end up in the world of e-com product management? Because that's a very distinct subset of, say, software product management more generally.
Absolutely. So I've been all over the place. For starters, at BradyPLUS, we have a team of product managers. So I'm just one of many there. I specifically, the thing that I love about my role and where it fits in my skill set is I'm in charge of what we consider the reordering process. So we've got customers, we've already acquired them, and now we're just trying to make their jobs as easy as possible to reorder their thing. And so what it does is it allows me to get in the weeds with customers, doing site visits, listening to complaints, listening to feedback, and doing that. And that's really where my skill set falls. So as far as how I landed here, which is a wild story into itself, I spent 10 years as a game designer, as a video game designer, building all sorts of games. I did games for consoles. I've done games for handheld. I went through the rise and fall of Facebook gaming and the birth of mobile gaming, and ultimately just got burned out of that industry a little bit, got married, had kids, and had to find something else. Was just dying from the 100-hour work weeks, low pay. And I had a number of engineers leave games and move to software. And so I had a couple of them reach out and say, hey, this new field at the time of user experience, UX, is starting to kick off. We think your skill set as a game designer is a great translation to this. And I found my way into UX design. And from UX design, that's the path that I found to product, is that path. You see some people go through sales to product or leadership to product or any numbers. I came through UX and a hard design background, a product design background, understanding requirements, understanding user needs, competitive research, empathy mapping, personas, all of that kind of stuff. And ultimately did a few product stints, working on products for law enforcement, products for 911, dispatch centers, all of that, worked my way through a couple of those, and then just kind of fell into e-com. So I had been working in product B2B space and then fell into e-com in a retail standpoint and then e-com in a B2B space, which is where BradyPLUS falls, and have just picked up little skills along the way. And that's how I landed here. But that hard product design background is exactly like you said. That's the one thing that can be frustrating in the product project, is the difference between those two. I'm thankful and lucky enough in my role that the project stuff, it's always there. Anyone that works in product knows that, especially depending on the size of the company, you're going to have to wear that hat. But I get to abstract a little bit from that and really hyper focus on how do we make the best experience possible for our customers. And doing that is really what I love. That's the stuff I love. I am not good at, nor do I love the project side of things. That's not my skill set. But getting in there, like getting into warehouses, getting into janitor closets, getting into food trucks, and like working with these customers and saying, hey, what's ordering your janitor and sanitation supplies is not your most important role. You have 10,000 other things going on. How do I make this one part of your job as quick and easy as possible so you can go and do the other things? And it's an interesting product design space because you're really trying to minimize the amount they use your product. A lot of product design is like, how do we make our product sticky? How do we make them use it more often? How do we make them do? I'm the opposite of that. Like, I want them to get in, place their order, and go do the other 10,000 things they have. And so it's been a really fun sort of product design experience because I get to do that, because I get to understand that and wrap my head around it and talk with them and visit with them. And it's been an incredible experience. I've loved it. I've loved it so far. And that path from games to product to now e-com it's been a wild ride, but that's where I am.
I love it. I love it. Now, typically your project or program managers, they have control of and they're measured primarily through the lens of three primary KPIs, right? We've got scope, we've got timeline, and we have budget. Those are the three KPIs that project and program managers, that's what they live and die by. And in that sense, they don't necessarily have to have, it's always good to have, but it's not a requirement of the job that they have high empathy levels. They are tasked with delivering a project, right? They're,
Yes.
okay, cool. Here's the scope. Maybe the scope came from a product manager. Maybe the scope came from SI or an agency. Maybe the scope came from a business lead. Maybe, it doesn't really matter where the scope came from. They're handed a scope of work. They are tasked with making sure that, okay, here's the budget. Here's how fast it has to be delivered. Oh, and here's the scope of work so that you can help manage the testing process, the UAT process, and making sure it's delivered against that scope, right? That we deliver what we said we would deliver. A product manager, right, has a totally different, not only a different lens, but they also typically are measured with different KPIs, right? They're not necessarily delivered with project delivery KPIs. That's for somebody else to deal with once you've helped to define the scope through the lens of what the customer needs to have a good experience. So maybe talk me through, because I haven't run into yet. And look, I've been working exclusively in the B2B world for the last 5+ years. And before that, a mix of retail e-com and B2B e-com. And I don't think I have yet to run into a single product manager at a manufacturer or distributor so far in my career. So that tells me it's rare. That tells me it's special. That tells me the priorities of the business are different to your traditional distributor. A, why do you think that is? How did they get to this point where they valued product management as highly as they do? Two, how do your KPIs, like how are you measured on doing a good job in your role today at BradyPLUS?
Yeah, so I'm thankful and lucky to work for a boss who came from product. Like, he was brought in as a product manager to more or less, like, the nice thing about BradyPLUS is it's been around forever and it has traditional like Salesforce boots on the ground. Like, I'm in ordering for our customers with the traditional Salesforce, right? Like what we're used
belly
to over
belly
the last
selling.
60 years. And it's not until like fairly recently they're like, hey, how do we get our customers online? And so instead of just viewing it as it wasn't built as a tool to acquire customers. Like, the sales reps still go and acquire customers. So we don't have those same KPIs that a sales rep has. It's wildly different. Our goal as an e-com team and as a product team is that functionality. Like, we're building a platform to make things easier for the customer, to make things stick so that they order from us more or get those sorts of things
check
in front of them.
Check price, check MOQs, check buying increments, all that stuff.
So it's different. It's different in that the acquisition is completely abstracted from us. And we hyper focus on that use case, that product building. How do we make it good and clean and easy to use? And so that's our source of truth. So as far as when we get to KPIs, we look at things more like most people, like our NPS score is a pretty big part of that. Make our NPS into a number of like, how easy is checkout, how easy is the reorder, how easy is contact, like all of that. So NPS is a source of truth. But then we also look at our traditional like monetary, like average order volume, average lines per order, so that we
Yep.
can get a feel for, okay, are the customers online ordering more than they would if they were traditional
Yes.
orders? Are they are their orders higher value? Are they ordering more frequently? Like we look at frequency of order. So we're basically looking for those KPIs that tell us more or less the health of the customer. Like we don't care as much about the specific numbers. We care more about that. Hey, what's the health of this
What's the
customer?
trend?
Yep. And are we retaining them? We
Yeah.
want to make sure
Adoption and
that like they're
retention.
not going in the world that we live in. Like any of the things that we sell or provide for them, you can get on Amazon, and there's nothing stopping anyone from just going and searching Amazon. You can buy anything there now, and so that's what we're trying to keep track of: is are we losing business not only to our competitors, but just places where it's more convenient for them to order? Is it more convenient for them to go somewhere completely abstracted from our circle and order something? And so that's where our KPIs fall and what we keep track of. And me personally, like I really strive to just be that. I want to see word of mouth. I want to see reviews, like on our like the mobile app or the website. Are we getting reviews that someone's literally like a ton of just like qualitative, throw the quantitative out the window. I want qualitative feedback of someone saying, this app is incredibly easy to use. This took 10 minutes off of my ordering process every week. Or this app allows me to focus on the things that I need to focus on. And those are the things, like that qualitative feedback is incredibly valuable to me as a product manager, sometimes even more so than the quantitative, because the quantitative can make sure that my ship is getting to where I need it to go, but that qualitative can be quick snapshots to see, am I even pointed in the right direction? Because 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road, if we're not pointed in the right direction, the NPS score is going to be way lower than we expect it to be. And we're only doing a barometer on that every so often. And so that qualitative along the way can be a make or break for me before we get to that point.
I think one of the other super interesting things that comes out of you being a product manager versus a project manager are that, so when I start working with a brand new manufacturer distributor for the first time, we've never engaged before, as part of my discovery process, one of the key sections of that discovery is what level of have you operationalized customer feedback beyond, oh, just the account rep talks to their customer, and if the customer wants something, the account rep will raise it internally. When was the last time do you do NPS? When was the last time you interviewed customers? Do you have customer cohorts that you interview independently because they need different things? Like obviously, if you've got a customer who's a $10 million a year customer, what they need might be very different to a $500,000 a year customer versus a $50 million a year customer, whatever the case may be. And you can slice and dice your customer cohorts in a million different ways, and their needs will be quite different depending on what strata they fit in, or regionalization matters, language matters. There's a million different things, ways we can segment our customers. But oftentimes, the unfortunate answer, 95+% of the time, is no, we haven't interviewed our customers recently. No, we haven't asked our customers what they would want in an e-commerce experience. No, we haven't asked our customers the 1, 2, or 3 things that they love about doing business with us versus the 1, 2, or 3 things that is really painful about doing business with us. No, we haven't asked those questions. We haven't brought nuance to those answers. We haven't bucketized or built those responses into themes that then overlap with our strategic objectives as a business. And where we find overlap, it would be easy to deliver for both the business and the customer. And oftentimes what I'll say is, look, we need to be having these. If you haven't done those things, then we might be trying to scope something that we think is going to be fit for purpose and we think is going to be adopted. But wouldn't it be better to know versus think, and know versus assume? And an even worse case scenario than that is we actually don't care what our customers want, which occasionally I do hear, which is insane when I hear that terminology.
Yes.
But
Yes.
we actually don't care what our customers want. We need to become more efficient because there is massive pricing pressure in our industry. And so therefore we have to become more efficient to remain viable as a business. So our focus is on that, not on what the customer wants. And I'm thinking, if you're going to go and spend $2, $3, $4, $500,000 on the shiny new e-com experience, wouldn't it be a pretty good idea to help ensure that the customers are actually going to even use that to get the efficiency that you think you're going to get? Because if they don't adopt that, then you aren't going to get the efficiency you think you're going to get anyway. So these are the types of conversations I'm trying to have with my clients and helping them
Yeah.
reorientate their expectations so that the customer goes on the journey with them instead of them forcing the customer on a journey that they may not want to go down anyway.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when they allow me to lead some of these customer interviews because the customer will oftentimes say things to me that they'll never say to the supplier because they got to turn around and do business with that supplier
Yep.
the next day.
Yep.
And they'll hedge their bets. They'll take the edge off their feedback when they're talking directly to the supplier. But when they're talking to me, if it's an independent call and I'm interviewing them, they'll be pretty blunt about the things that they love about that supplier and the things that they go, God, this is so friggin' hard to do business with the supplier. If they just changed this one thing, it would make our lives so much better. But they've never asked us, so they've never changed it. And we've been doing business with them for 15 years. So I know that was a long soliloquy, but I feel like the role that you play is one of asking the types of questions of your customers that I'm trying to encourage every one of my clients to ask their customers.
Yeah, one of the acronyms I use, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but is one that I always do. It's NIHITO, and all it stands for is nothing important happens in the office. And
Yes.
I live myself like I can sit in the office and look at spreadsheets and do all this, but unless I'm going out and talking to the customers, seeing what they do, seeing their behaviors, how they think, and sometimes that's hard. Like just like you said, like I can usually, it's one of the nice things about being in product and not sales. And especially if a sales rep will let me visit their customer without them, I can get that truth. Because when the sales rep's there, I don't get the full truth. Or
Yes.
if I'm hearing from the sales rep, like it can be painted different ways. But talking with the customer face to face, and that's one of the hidden skills of product is being able to read between those lines. Because even talking to me or even like yourself, I'm sure you get that same thing where they'll be more honest with you, but you're still not getting the full story. You're hearing what they say, but what they're thinking and what they're feeling, you sometimes have to get between the lines and read body language and read how they said something and interpret things. And there's
Or
this
watch
like
them
little
perform the
skill
function.
set.
Just
Yep.
literally watch them.
Yes.
Literally
Yeah.
just go and do this thing.
Yeah.
And I
I
want
just
you
want
to,
to watch you.
yeah.
Yes. That's the hardest thing.
It's
Sometimes they're
creepy.
like, oh,
It's
well,
creepy, but trust me.
yep. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to see? I don't want to talk about anything. I want you to do your job. I'm going to watch. Just try to think out loud for me. Getting
Yeah.
someone to just getting them in that mind space where it's, I'm not going to cue you on anything. I want you to do your job and just try to, everything you're doing, try to talk out loud. And sometimes you got to repoke them and be like, oh, why did you click that? Oh, why did you do that? Instead, getting them to get in that space of thinking out loud can sometimes be the hardest challenge because what you were getting at even is ultimately we're trying to solve problems. There's business decisions and there's money and all these things. But at the end of the day, a product is trying to solve a problem. As a blank, I need to do blank so that I can blank. It's a problem statement, right? And we're just trying to solve that problem. And it doesn't matter if your product is e-com, a physical product, an app, a website, or whatever it is. Your users are trying to solve that problem. They don't care about the bottom line. They don't care about what the shipping costs or what this does. All I need is I need to solve blank so that I can blank. And understanding the nuances of that problem statement is the difference between a bad, a good, and a great product. And the great products understand that problem statement. They know their mission statement, they know what they're trying to solve, and they design the solution around that problem as opposed to the tertiary problems that are surrounding what's going on.
And let's look at this for a moment. Let's take us off track just a little bit here. So I've run SIs and agencies and built e-com agencies that do development and do design, like user experience design. They might even do customer journey mapping. They might do all that sort of stuff. But even in that environment, we don't typically have product managers, right? We have digital designers, we have UI UX designers, we may even have somebody who does all they do is avatar development, customer journey design, all that sort of stuff, but they don't come at it, and they oftentimes don't understand product development. They don't know what that product development lifecycle looks like. And then we have the project manager who's got, here's my 3 KPIs, right? You got
Yep.
to help me hit those 3 KPIs, otherwise I'm going to be out of a job. And if we have work that we're doing for a customer, a client that's not billable, then that's going to kill my KPIs. And I'm all about resource utilization of my digital designer, all about resource utilization of my UX designer. I'm all about resource utilization of my developers, of my BAs, of my solution architects, of whatever roles they're managing. It's their responsibility to ensure the highest level of resource utilization as possible. And so oftentimes the getting to a place of an elite product is at odds with trying to ensure your viability as a business long term as an agency now, right? Delivering
Yeah.
these types of projects. So, do you think that, where do you think that the product management in a perfect world would actually sit? Do you think that should, in a perfect world, sit inside a BradyPLUS, or should that capability also sit, or exclusively sit in a perfect world, inside your delivery partners that are actually helping to deliver this, unless you're developing your own platform in-house? But I just feel like this tension between product and project management is something that is not very often explored.
There's definitely a tension. And where it sits is completely different. For a company, I've worked for countless companies, worked for tons of different types of products, and it makes sense different places for different people, for different companies. And so that's hard to say. But what I will say is, from my perspective, product management, you you are the voice of the customer in the product development lifecycle. You're where you stake your flag is the customer. And sometimes you get product managers that will like stake their flag a little more, and they're like, hey, this is, I'm concerned about the timelines, or I'm
Yes.
concerned about the budget, or I'm, for me, like, you're starting to get into project management too. Like,
Yes.
for me
Yes.
as a product manager, I will always side with the customer. Like, I will always side with, this is the way it should be done for me, the customer. If that means that in that triangle we talked about, if that means my cost goes up, that time goes up, so be it. Like, we've got to rework the schedule, because my source of truth is the customer. And that should be my guiding light. Like, what the customer says is a product manager's guiding light, in my opinion. And that's where you start to get that like weird bleed. And so, like, where you fall in that spectrum, like as far as development life cycle and what side you fall on, could be debated depending on the size of the company, the type of product, anything like that. But as far as the role of a product manager, your guiding light should be the customer voice. Like, you are the voice of the customer to the engineers, to the C-suite, to the VPs, like whoever you report to or whatever structure you have. It is your job to convey, hey, here is what the customer wants. And but so even outside of that, like, it's your job to understand from what the customer said and translate it to what they want and or need and or tangible requirements as well. That's the other bridge that you have to cross, is, okay, I understand what you need, but I also know these constraints. Like, maybe we're working within a certain platform where,
Mhm.
okay, we're going to have to figure out this different way to do things. And that's the crux of the project or the product management is, this is what the customer needs. How can I bridge the gap to what we can build, and then message that to the project team, to the engineers, to designers, to executives, to back to the customers, to sales. Like, how do I train sales so that they know this new flashy thing we just built? How do I use it and convey it to our new customers? Like, you are that, like, it's the glue, right? Like, the product manager is the glue that brings all those different pieces together, is what I see a lot of.
And what happens when you have competing priorities? What happens when you have a limited budget? Hey, look, we're going to do we're going to do a sprint every 2 weeks, and we can only deliver so much work in that time. We've got a fixed retainer, say, for example, with our SI partner or whatever, and we just can only do what we can do. And then obviously, in some instances, you might be two customers that kind of are recommending something that is somewhat diametrically opposed in
Yep.
some instances, and
Yep.
you're going to disappoint someone, so you got to decide who you're going to disappoint, because you might not be able to do both because they're in competition with each other in terms of the way something functions. And you kind of have, there's a fork in the road. You can go one of two ways, and customer A wants you to go this way and customer B wants you to go the other way, and you got to pick a direction to go. And so do you then try to find areas of commonality, areas of overlap, themes that come out of these customer interviews, areas where, okay, cool, customer A wants to go this way, but we've also got 3 other customers that want us to go this way. Cool. We've only got 1 customer that wants us to go the other way, so we're going to go the one where it's going to make 3 or 4 customers happy instead of just 1 customer happy. So therefore, that's the one that gets weighted heavier in terms of the direction we go. So like when you're trying to think about prioritization, when you're trying to think about budgetary impact, when you're trying to think about impact full stop on the overall customer experience and trying to, I guess, grab as much of the low-hanging fruit as you possibly can so that you move the needle the fastest for best bang for the buck, so to speak. How do you start breaking ties? How do you start prioritizing? How do you think about those tasks as part of product management?
A couple of things there. There's a handful of little chunks that I
Yeah,
kind of want
yeah,
to dive into there. One, A, understanding the why is like a
yes,
big part of it. And that's a big part of the product is customers will ask for features, sales will ask for features. You've got to understand the why because sometimes someone asks for something, not understanding that, hey, maybe we already do this if you do it this other way. So diving into it's the 5 whys, right?
yes.
Like anytime you talk to a customer and you're like, I wish you guys would allow us to do this. Oh, that's really interesting. Why? Oh, because then I could do this. Oh, talk to me more about why that's important to you. And asking that why 5 times and really getting to the like, why do you even need to do this? Can help you understand at a core level. So you're not just pitting feature against feature, because in
Mhm.
some cases, you may learn what they're really asking for isn't in opposition to this other thing. They actually want the same thing. They're just asking for it in different ways. And so doing that is the start because sometimes you can solve your problem right there and just understand, okay, what you're asking for isn't really what you're asking for.
In
So
other words, if we move further upstream from this, maybe we can solve it further upstream.
yes. Yeah. So that's situation 1. The other thing I like to do, and this is an interesting game, if you've never done this with a group of like a company or a group, is I do, if you're familiar with getting into the project management space, are you familiar with planning poker?
No, never heard of
So
that.
planning poker is a way to get estimates for features and do stuff where it's the engineers playing this game where like you hold up cards and then like the high and the low estimates argue. And we won't dive too much into it because it's project management and I don't like it. But what I do is we play planning poker, but instead of doing it from an estimates, like how much will it, like what's the estimate for building this feature? I bring one of every discipline into the room and we rank features based on, we prioritize features. So I'll have a sales rep in the room, I'll have a customer support agent, I'll have an engineer, I'll have product, and then I usually like to get someone at the executive level just because they have a different perspective. And then what you do is you bring up the feature, you explain it as a product manager. Okay, we're adding a new printing invoices feature, like whatever the feature is. You explain it, you talk about what it looks like, how it feels, and then everyone thinks about it for a second and you hold up cards ranging from like a 1 to a 13 kind of cards. And technically it's like you use like the Fibonacci sequence,
Ah,
but
yes.
and so you get these numbers across the board. Like sales, listen means nothing to us. Sales holds up a 1. And customer success is, we hear this all the time. This is a 13 for us. And then you have that conversation. You say, okay, sales, why is this feature not important to you? And they say, oh, this doesn't get us any new business. This maybe helps with the business we have, but doesn't net us anything new. Customer success says, oh, we have hundreds of customers ask for this. This would eliminate 30 calls a month for us. Who knows what that is? But everyone talks about it. And what it does is it brings everyone to the same table to discuss it and say, hey, this is where things fall. And at the end of the day, what you then get, you get that conversation and then you revote. Everyone revotes having heard perspectives. Maybe sales comes up to a 5, customer success comes down to a 7, and then you get a number. And what I can basically do then is either take an average or an Olympic average or whatever we want, and that gives me a prioritization number on every single feature that's on our near-term
Wow.
roadmap. And
Wow. I
so
love
now we
that.
have a quantitative number for
Assigned to
priority
everything.
that sales, executives, customer success, product, engineering, like a lot of times engineering will be like, this is a 2 because this is a nightmare for us to
Yes, this
build.
is going to
And
take us
then
6 months.
everyone hears that. But what that does in the end is it gives us a quantitative number that we can take that number and we can take our estimate to build it, like our engineering number, and we literally have ROI because we have the return is the prioritization, the investment, the I is that engineering, and we can calculate ROIs. And when it's all said and done, I mean, as a product manager, you obviously want like everything to get done. You want to build everything for your customer. But when it's all said and done, ROI is that other source of truth. Like when you have competing, like I said, the source of truth is the customer, but just like you said, you're going to have 100 things from the customer. Everything should be from the customer. So to prioritize, the ROI is the goal, right? If there's a low estimate thing, like easy to build and high value, those are the
Let's
gimmies,
do
right?
that.
Like,
Let's do that. That's a
yeah.
no-brainer.
And that's exactly what you get is if you play that planning poker, you get your R. You get your across the table return where sales loves this, customer success loves this, everyone loves this, and the estimate's really low. You then have a quantitative number to say, here's our ROIs. And then road mapping is easy because you literally just go, okay, what's our biggest bang for the buck? And sometimes the low hanging fruit gets those wins. Sometimes it's, hey, this is going to be hard to build, but everyone at the table says it's a must have. And so then you can say, okay, you guys, this next release is going to be a 6-month release or however big it needs to be, but you have the data to say it's worth taking the time for this big feature because all of us at the table agreed we have to have this feature. And then it's less of that butting heads and arguing what's more important, what's less important. Everyone had a conversation. We all agreed. We all saw the numbers. And now we have a quantitative sort of, let's go to this line and we can go to it. So that's one of the methods that I'll use to start prioritizing things. And sometimes the hardest part is just getting everyone in that same room or getting someone from all those different disciplines in the same room. But if you do that, you can start to get that buy-in. And then there's transparency too. Then when it's 6 months down the road and sales is, hey, why haven't we gotten X feature yet? You say, oh, remember when we did the prioritization? Like,
And
its
you
number
saw it
just
on the
wasn't as
backlog and it
high.
was number 4?
Yep. Yep.
Wow. I like that. I'll tell you why I love that. I love the re-ranking after discussion. I love the
Yes.
fact that we get people's raw take initially, because what I see in the re-rank is that we now are forcing empathy on the whole team. Meaning that,
Yes.
okay, cool, I ranked this a 13, but I forgot that Johnny over there has to deliver this to the business. And so therefore,
Yep.
okay, in the grand scheme of things, he's right. This just doesn't, it doesn't, sure, it's a 13 if it's only me that I'm thinking about here. But if I have to think about Johnny or Jill and they've got these other priorities, and okay, cool, it's not that important to them because of XYZ. I actually understand the XYZ now. It really forces everybody to exercise the empathy
Yes.
muscle. And I think that's something that is oftentimes missing from the process. Is they're fighting for their fiefdom, right? They're fighting
Yes.
for
Yep.
control, they're fighting for budget, they're fighting for priority, they're fighting for a promotion, like everybody's got their own personal agenda, right? Their own personal and professional agenda. And the reality is humans tend to be selfish and neurotic because that's what's kept us alive for millennia,
Yes.
right? Hey, cool, if I need to go out and hunt to stay alive, then I can't really have empathy for that rabbit that I'm killing. I need to kill it and I need to eat it to stay alive. And so we have to really consciously operationalize empathy, and I think this is one of the ways to operationalize empathy.
Yeah. Empathy is the product muscle, right?
Yes,
Manager, empathy is your
it's
skill
your
set. Whenever
superpower.
someone says, what can I do to like get into product management or get anything, I'll say, how's your empathy? Because empathy should be like one of your, if you do a personality test or anything like that, like your empathy should be off the charts. Because as a product manager, it has to be. Like you have to put yourself in shoes, understand, read between the lines, and have true empathy. Understanding and empathy are like two different things. You can understand someone's struggle just fine, but putting yourself in the shoes and going, okay, like I can really see why this is a problem. I can see and
I can
feel.
feel it.
I
Yeah,
can
I can
feel
feel.
why this is a problem for you. Yep. And getting the rest, like the rest of the team sometimes doesn't have that skill built out like that. So you're
Yes,
exactly right. Like getting sales, getting customer success, getting engineers to get into those empathetic shoes is a big win because then you're exactly right. Like people start thinking about things a little differently and start going, okay, now I do understand the struggle. And whether they feel the struggle or not is one thing, but at least they're starting to understand, or they're starting to get that empathy towards the different departments, towards our customers, towards whatever they need to.
I love that. I love that. Do you guys have a PMO, not product management office? Do you have a project management office within the company as well? And how does your role overlap with project managers inside the business? And how do you interface with project managers?
Yeah, so we're a little different like where I am now. I've worked in a lot of different orgs. Ultimately, like it's that the way I like to describe it, and outside of what we do, it's the front half of building and the back half of building. Like the product manager lines up the backlog.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
the goal is to figure out like what do we need to build, what's the most important to build, and then there's that handoff to the project management. And that's where those two come into play. And
Or a
I've
BA or a solution
yeah,
architect or somebody in
yeah.
between, basically engineering and delivery.
Yep. Yeah. And so, like, different companies do it different ways, and we do it differently than other places I've been at. But that's that divide is that difference between what do we build and how do we accomplish it. And as long as that's the dividing line, I think you're generally good. It's where you start to get the
The
weird
muddiness.
bleed. Yeah. And the more you work in, especially if you get into like small spaces and startup work, like every startup I've worked at, it's been that like PM is
Yes,
both. It's
yes.
product and
And
project.
that
And
feels almost impossible. It
it's
feels
it's
almost
hard,
impossible.
right? It's hard. And you can't do it depends on like the level that you're trying to do these at, but you can't do both of those. Like one of those two is going to suffer. Either
Yes,
you're not going to get your priorities right on the product side, or you're not going to be a very good project manager. Like you
yes,
you don't keep to the timelines well enough. I always fall in the latter. Well, oh, I get my priorities right and I know my customers, but I'm not great at making sure my engineers are meeting deadlines or making sure that's not my skill set. And if I have to wear both those hats, that's always going to be the one that suffers. And
yes,
then leadership comes down and says, hey, why did this release slip 2 weeks? Oh, I don't know. Like things just took longer than they did. And quite honestly, like I didn't really take the time to like me as a product person, we're more concerned about things being right than things being on time. And if we
yeah,
get to
yeah,
that triangle, like the scope is always going to be my source of truth. If we're
yes,
working like even like I've always had the luxury of doing Kanban style, where it's
yes,
like, okay, it ships when it ships. We're going to make sure it's right. Like we don't care. The deadline is less important to us than it being right. And or yeah, that's what we want is we want the feature, the product, whatever it is to hit the mark. And sometimes that comes at the cost of or at the cost of the timeline, really is
yeah.
what
The
it boils
timeline and
down
the
to.
budget. Yeah,
And that's
suffers.
that's always where I'll side. I'll always side on the let's get things right as opposed to on time. And that's the difference between me as a product and versus a project manager.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. And what you said you have multiple product managers inside the
Yep.
business. You're not the only one.
No.
So types of other responsibilities do product managers have inside the business, and where have you seen like you own this kind of relatively narrow niche within the business, and I'm guessing that these other product managers, they own other parts of the
Yep.
engagement experience with the business.
Yep, exactly that. And I've seen the same kind of divides. Like I've been in non B2B, like I did a stint at Overstock, if you're
Yeah.
familiar with that. But like
Yep.
I've like the same kind of thing. Like it's one big website, but product has its like lanes. So we have like product managers in charge of just like the search experience. Like how do you search,
Fine.
filter, find items, find like recs, like how do we
Yep.
get delivered recs, all of that. We have product managers that are in charge of like that like invoices, ordering, order history, like all of that kind of
Order
stuff.
management workflow.
Product. Yep. We have product like me, like I'm like mobile app, order guides, like all of that reordering process. And we have like PIM, like just a product manager, just in charge of enriching items on site
Product
and
data.
making sure that we have images, videos, chemical worksheets, like all the stuff that we have on site, like making sure that is filled in. So it's just that. It's just finding swim lanes and saying, hey, what's your skill set? What does it best serve? And putting people in spots to succeed within those swim lanes. Because if looking at like a website, an e-commerce website as a product is huge. And if you were to
Yeah.
just bite that off as a single individual, like you don't have the time to
Forget
like
it.
go and discover all these different things. And so, yeah, like we've basically just divided up into swim lanes. And I have, in the grand scheme of things, it's a tiny little swim lane that I have, but I love it because it is that ordering process. I really get to understand how customers place orders and how we can make ordering easier for them.
Wow. Wow. What is next for you guys? What are you thinking? Oftentimes we see in B2Bs, they might have what would be called an e-commerce product data manager, for example. So they oftentimes have manager titles as opposed to product related titles. But I think that even the titles matter because the expectation based on the title defines the responsibilities, the JD, the KPIs, it all revolves around what you've been hired to do for the business. And
Yeah.
so do you see a world where over the next couple of years that you guys take on more product managers because you need to get more granular within certain technologies or systems or customer facing processes or whatever it is, right? Because I'm sure you probably have a product manager of customer success or something like that, right? Where they're managing that entire engagement around customer success. And
Yep.
do you feel like you guys will get more or less granular over time? I'm assuming more.
I, that's a great question. And to be honest, like I don't know that I know the answer to it. I think we're taking it as things come.
Yes.
I don't know if we'll grow. I don't anticipate like I don't see roles going away necessarily.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
the where we are. Ultimately, our goal and our like mission statement is to make ordering crazy simple. And so whatever we need to do, however we need to branch out to do that, that's the goal, is to make the ordering process crazy easy for customers. And where we go as a team, I don't even know that I can speak to that, to be honest. We'll get there when we get there. But as it stands right now, like that is our goal. We don't care about necessarily the like where do we go from here
The
until
org
we
chart.
start getting too many hats where it's like, hey, I'm dropping, there's balls dropping. I don't have the time in my day to handle this stuff. We'll deal with that when we cross that. When we get to that road, we'll cross it. But as it stands now, like we're just trying to make that process and that product that we're all focused on as a team the best it can possibly be.
I love that. I love that. And if you could snap your fingers and change anything about the B2B, let's narrow it down to B2B e-commerce, not just B2B sales. If you could snap your fingers and change one thing about the B2B e-commerce industry, what would it be?
Like from internal, like an us
No, just
customer perspective.
across the whole entire industry. If you could sprinkle fairy dust on the B2B e-commerce industry and you could make it better overnight at the snap of your fingers, what would that look like?
To me, I think it's that you mentioned it, like right off the top, like finding e-commerce and especially B2B e-commerce, finding people who are hyper focused on product is far and few between. And coming from a product design background, I've been to B2B conferences. I've been to e-commerce conferences, and I've also been to like product design conferences and spoken at product conferences, and the mentality is wildly different. And that's, I
Totally.
guess, what I would wish is I wish we could see more product focused individuals within e-commerce and within B2B because it's not, we sometimes treat them like different things. We're like, oh, I work in B2B, so we don't do. Yes, you do. We're all trying to solve problems. Like
Yes.
whether you're like, even if you're selling to a business to business, right? That's B2B. At the end of the day, that business is still a person.
Selling to
Person
people.
still has a problem to solve. And you may be selling to someone at the C suite and the individual user is down here, but that doesn't change that, like, we can have buyer personas and we can have user personas. And yes, they are two different things. And sometimes they have different problems that they're solving. It doesn't mean that we should go and not understand both of those problems. Like, I need to understand the problem of who's buying the software, who's buying the experience, who's signing up for an account. But I also need to understand the day to day, who's using the product, how are they using it, what do they need to do, how are they in conflict with this buyer persona up here. And that product life cycle and that understanding of how we design products, That's what I wish we could bring more and more into. And I think we're doing a great job of bringing in product. Like we're bringing in product experience to our org. I want to see more and more of that. I want to see more product designers and more people that have product design, UX design, some form of that empathetic eye,
Yes.
bringing them into these types of
Yeah,
businesses.
user experience design, whatever
Yep.
whatever kind of background role kind of starts and ends with empathy. Any
Yep.
role like that, and any background, that's probably
Yes.
anybody with a psychological background, a counseling background. You don't necessarily have to come from a pure product management background to be
No.
able to upskill and become a really good product manager.
Yep.
I think it starts with the ability to have empathy, and that's like the superpower of a great product manager
Yep.
is superior empathy, right?
Yeah. And I've seen more and more, like speaking to exactly that, I've seen more and more customer success make their way to product
Yeah.
because they become this, like you're dealing with customers every single day. Like you've
Yes.
heard the good, the bad, the ugly. So it it hones you to that and makes you can make you a really good product manager. Whereas before, sometimes it was like sales or management or these kind of things. You're seeing more and more. My path was UX design. And you're seeing more UX design make their way to product, more customer success make their way to product. And that's what I love to see. I love to see less of the business and more of the like understanding, talking to, getting a feeling for customers making their way to this space, because that tells me you have the heart, you've listened to customers, you've heard their problems, and that's what we want to see.
Yeah, and it's such a challenge because oftentimes what the business wants and needs or thinks it needs feels like it comes into direct conflict with what the customer says they want and need. And
Sometimes,
but
yeah.
ultimately, if we don't give the customer what they want and need as the first priority, you ain't going to have a business to try to
Nope.
optimize. You ain't going to
Nope.
have a business to try to grow. You ain't going to have a
Yep.
business, multi-generational business. It's not going to last for multiple generations if because every single business that I work with says and uses the words we're customer centric or we give our customers amazing service. We're the best in our industry at the service we give. And
Yeah.
but then when I ask that follow-up question around when was the last time you canvassed your customers, when you sat down with them, when you interviewed them, when you talked with them, did you have a third party come in and talk to them as opposed to just you so that you could get the raw honest truth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And with when one side of their mouth they say we're customer centric and then the other side of the mouth they say, oh, it's been 18 months, then
Yeah.
to me that the proof's in the pudding, right? If you're customer centric, then you have to be talking to customers and you have to do it in a
Yes.
structured
Yep.
way, right? And it has to be operationalized in
Yep.
a way that is consistent and you're constantly getting this valuable feedback from the customer experience. And the reality is that the customer experience expectations, they also evolve over time. So you might interview a customer today and they say these are my top 3 issues, right? But then they go out in the world and they use other suppliers' websites, they use Amazon, they use their last best experience becomes their new normal expectation. And
Yep.
so the reality is it can never be a one and done thing. It's a
Oh yeah.
continuous thing, right?
Yes. Yep. And you got a lot. That's one of my other qualms is a lot of times people will, they'll, just like we say we're customer centric, they say we're data centric. And it's okay, we've set up these data points to determine health, but the thing about data is it can be manipulated, and once someone
Yes.
finds a comfort zone, like that data may not tell the full story. And one of the adages I like to use is data doesn't say things, humans say things. And so even if you have the data that you're like, okay, our KPIs are showing we're doing good, you still got to go talk to the customers, because when it's all said and done, they may find their way around your data. Like they may find the, hey, I don't like doing this, but I found the workaround to make it work. And that workaround doesn't show in your data because they found a workaround where it's manipulating your data. And you still got to go talk to them and say, okay, what are the problems you're finding? And you find that they're like, okay, I found out how I can do this, but I've got to do this and this. And then that makes my order a little easier or whatever it is. And that's where that it's important to just get that qualitative feedback. Quantitative is great and it can help get you in the right direction, but hearing those words and talking to people and that, back to the empathy, like feeling what they're feeling is huge. And you've got to do that. Like you've got to do that as part of the product process.
Wow, I love it. We've talked about B2B, but I see the same challenge in the B2C and D2C world too, in that
Yes.
I don't think I've ever worked with a retailer over the last 25 years. I don't think, I could be wrong. There maybe have been one or two in there sprinkled in there that I wasn't aware of, but I don't think I've ever seen a retail company, big or small, that has any kind of e-commerce product management in the business. They might have a PMO with project managers. They might have program managers across all their software projects, whether it's ERP, CRM, CDP, PIM, ecom, whatever it is.
Yep.
But I think product management, like you see product management much more in things like banks, for example, or
Yeah.
insurance companies, or games, or like you see
Yep.
product management oftentimes in more service orientated businesses than
Yeah.
product sales orientated
Yeah.
businesses. And I think that we could go on for hours. I just feel like this is such a powerful demonstration and a powerful commentary on how lacking we are in the e-commerce industry, full stop. This is not just a problem within B2B. This is a problem universally across e-commerce, that we don't,
Oh yeah.
I think, treat our experiences as products often enough. And that's why we get substandard results out of those
Yeah.
products as a result, because whether you realize it or not, it's a product. And
Yeah.
so whether you treat it as a product or not, it is. And so
Yeah.
the reality is, if we gave it the care, consideration, and love that we give all the rest of the things that we do operationally, if we paid as much attention to that product as we did the way that our field sales teams run their call cycles, for example, if we those playbooks, and in many B2Bs, those person to person playbooks have been refined over 50 years. Those playbooks have been refined over 75 years, 100 years. And so why would we think that our digital products deserve anything less?
You hit the nail on the head when you said the experience. It's all experiences. If it's e-commerce, if it's an app that I use, if it's a desktop application, if it's a video game, a board game, a learning and development,
Or a
like
phone
if I'm
call experience when I call customer
anything,
service?
they're all experiences. And an experience needs an experience designer, a product designer. That experience and product are synonyms. Like whether
Inseparable.
it's, yeah, if it's something that I like use and throw away, or it's an app that I use every day, or it's a website that I purchase something, those are all experiences. And to create an experience that people love needs a product first. You need a product designer, a product manager, call it, give it whatever title you want. You need someone to design that experience and build out, here's what the experience looks like. This goes back like the Apple days, where Apple was treating it from the point that you like go into a store and walk out of that store with their box, to the point that you're like using the product, like that unboxing experience, the purchasing experience, that is all part of it. That's all
Yes.
part of your experience with that product. And that's the crux. Like sometimes we're like, this is just a website where people buy things. Purchasing something is an experience, and we need to treat it as such. Every interaction you have with that company is part of it. And that's the way it needs to be viewed.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that specifically, and I'll give you one more example of where I think product design, product management is not maybe as important as it should be. I even bought, so I had the button cell battery die in my electronic key for my Jeep.
Yep.
And so I had to go and I had to buy a new button cell. So first of all, it was super hard to find because it was a super rare type of button cell. So I finally found it. Then when I got it home, I nearly destroyed the button cell trying to get it out of
Oh,
the
yeah.
package. Literally, the packaging was so impossible. I tried scissors. I tried a box cutter. Like getting into it, the way that the plastic was layered around the button cell, it was almost like I thought, this is worse than childproof. This is adult proof. And I eventually had to get a micro screwdriver in there and prise the two pieces of plastic apart. And I literally thought, if I'm this close to damaging the battery to the point where it's
Yep.
not even gonna
Yeah.
work, I'm thinking, who the hell? Like, I understand the product designer's job was probably, this is all about security. This is all, like they were probably thinking about, does this card hang on a shelf? They were
Yeah.
probably, how does it fit in a box? They were probably thinking about a million different things. But nobody clearly ever gave this button cell package to a normal consumer and said, try to
Yep.
open that and tell us whether it's frustrating or not. Because I can tell you right now, the next time I go to buy a button cell, I'm going to try to find a different brand just because of how freaking hard it was
Yeah.
to get that button cell out of the packaging. Now that sounds lame, that sounds stupid, but it was literally that bad. That's what, when I see that brand hanging on the shelf, that's the first thing I'm going to think of when I'm looking at buying my next button cell for a freaking key.
Take everything you just said and replace button cell with whatever product I'm buying on a website. If I land on a website and I can't find what I'm looking for, and then once I find what I'm looking for, I can't figure out how to add it to my cart, or you make me sign up for all this extra stuff when all I want to do is purchase this item. Like all of
Or
those
I
things
can't
you
see
just said,
inventory, or I can't see price, or
yep,
I don't know
can
when I'm
be
going to get it, or
translated directly to e-commerce or any product for that matter.
yeah,
If you have those same frustrations at any point in your process, that's an exit point. That's where the customer's
they're going to
pulling the
bounce.
parachute and they're going to bounce. Yep.
Wow. Incredible. Listen, fabulous conversation. I will add a link to the show notes to your LinkedIn profile if anybody wants to reach out to you and have a nice little chat about user experience and product design and product development and product management and all that sort of stuff. But as we do come down to the end of our time together, this is the opportunity I get to flip the script. I get the chance to turn the microphone over to you. I get the chance to let you ask me one question, any question you like. Mr. Bret Wardle from BradyPLUS. What is your question for me today?
So my history, like I said, I come from a video game background, and one of the empathetic questions I ask everyone, just because I like to see how their mind works, what they like. What is your favorite video game of all time?
Yeah, look, it's super interesting you asked that question because when I was young, when I was a kid, gaming was like a really big deal in our house. So I had ColecoVision, I had the super early Nintendos, I had the very earliest generation of Sega, I had many games. I think we have to go by almost generations of games, but like on
Yep.
ColecoVision, I think Metroid was my favorite game of all time on that particular platform. Then when we got into Nintendo, I loved like Legend of Zelda, but I also loved racing games. So I love quest type games. And then when we got into computer gaming, I think probably my favorite ever computer game, because I don't game anymore, I haven't gamed for many years. I think my favorite game probably was Doom. When Doom came out, I was like, this is a like crazy addictive game, like crazy addictive. I was like, this is the most addictive game I've ever played in my life. And I don't even know why it's addictive. It's just super fucking addictive.
It
So
changed the way that the industry worked. Like
y-
like quite literally flipped the game industry with shareware, freeware. Like
yes,
Doom changed the industry.
yes, yes, it was wild, and so yeah, it's yeah, and I've just it used to be like when I think back of childhood memories that were like with my dad and childhood memories that really stand out to me. That's definitely just gaming as a family thing. Like
Awesome.
gaming back then was not okay, a kid's going to lock himself in the basement for 5 hours. That's not, it was
No.
more of a family activity when I
Yep.
was young. I know it's not that now, but when I was young, like one night we might play video games together, and then another night we might be playing Uno cards together at the kitchen table together. So it was much more of a family activity than today. It feels, especially online network gaming, it feels like today it's a very isolated. It's not. I can't imagine like families sitting down on their couch in an evening and gaming together anymore. I don't think that's what happens
You're
now, is it?
you're doing it wrong because we do. My family, all we do like Jackbox games we play all the time, and it's that Minecraft. Like me,
Oh yeah,
my
yeah.
kids, we'll all hop on the Minecraft server together, sit on our couch, and
Oh
all be
yeah.
on the server talking like, "Hey, can someone bring me wood? Can someone bring me this?"
That's cool.
Castle Crashers. I don't know
Oh
if
yeah.
you've ever heard of that game, but
No.
there's this new resurgence, at least in gaming. It's called couch co-op, where they're
Okay.
cooperative games that you play like you're not online, you have to be in the same room.
Oh
And like
wow.
Castle Crashers, there's like a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, like there was a like Scott Pilgrim game. Like couch co-op is making this resurgence. You have Split Fiction is like another one that came out recently, but you're seeing this resurgence of what they call couch co-op, where multiple people in game in the same room, not online. And it's beautiful. Like I'll always have a soft spot, exactly like you. Like I remember growing up and doing this. I remember specifically like NBA Jam. like
Yes,
playing
yes.
NBA Jam with
Yep.
friends, like yelling at each other in the same room. So I'll always have a soft spot for those types of games. And I love this new resurgence that it has coming back. But it's definitely there. Like the online gaming community is there. And sometimes it gets that rap of like kid in his room ignoring homework. But the other games are out there. You just got to go find them.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely amazing conversation. You're an absolute legend. I thank you for spending time with me. It's
Thank
just been
you.
super, super fascinating. And listen, man, I can't wait to speak to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for having me.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.